Ready? All right. So Swami Sarvadevanandaji is traveling on the East Coast, so therefore I am filling in for him to have the class on reading and discussion of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So we'll start with our opening prayer. Do you all know this mantra? Most of you know it. Let's chant it together. Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravana Mangalam Shrimadatam Bhuvi Grinanti Bhuridajana. O Lord, your words, like sweet nectar, refresh the afflicted. Your words, which poets have sung in verses, vanquish the sins of the worldly. Blessed are they who hear of you, and blessed indeed are they who speak of you. How great is their reward. This is, of course, this verse comes from where? Bhagavatam. It's from the Gopi Gita. The gopis are singing, they've been separated from Sri Krishna and they're singing with great longing to find where is Sri Krishna. And they sing this verse. So, Tavakatamratam, both his words and just talking of him even is Amrita, is nectar, and not only nectar, but nectar that brings us to immortality. So that's the opening prayer that and M selected this verse, and it's printed on the first page of all of the Bengali edition of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. He selected this verse as embodying what he was trying to do, to be a vehicle for the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, to be a vehicle for simply providing us a way to really meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, because it describes so many beautiful incidents in his life. And I thought today we would look at chapter 15, last visit to Keshab. This hasn't come in one of the other classes, I hope, recently, because, No, not to your knowledge. Good. Okay, not too recently. Because there's a very touching incident, the last meeting of Sri Ramakrishna with his devoted, not disciple, more like a devotee. He was a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. He was also a friend. He was a heavyweight himself. And he was dying of tuberculosis in the end of 1883, and he actually died on the 8th of January, 1884. He was just a couple of years younger than Sri Ramakrishna, so they were almost the same age, and they became very close. So let's start in this page 318. The date is Wednesday, November 28, 1883. So I'm not sure how much to read the whole. They have a long discussion, and I don't know if we'll get to the whole discussion, but let's see how far we get. And it describes how at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, M was pacing the footpath of the circular road in front of the Lily Cottage, the Kamal Kutir, where Keshab Chandra Sen lived. He was eagerly awaiting the arrival of Sri Ramakrishna. Keshab's illness had taken a serious turn, and there was very little chance of his recovery. Since the master loved Keshab dearly, he was coming from Dakshineshwar to pay him a visit. On the east side of the circular road was Victoria College, where the ladies of Keshab's Brahmo Samaj and their daughters received their education. To the north of the college was a spacious garden house inhabited by an English family. M noticed that there was a commotion in the house and wondered what was going on. Presently, a hearse arrived, with the drivers dressed in black, and the members of the household appeared, looking very sad. There had been a death in the family. And then M thinks to himself, whither does the soul go, leaving behind this mortal body? Pondering the age-old question, M waited, watching the carriages that came from the north. So at 2 o'clock, M was waiting for Sri Ramakrishna. And finally, at 5 o'clock, a carriage stopped in front of the Lily College, and Sri Ramakrishna got out with Latu and several other devotees, including Rakhal. So he waited for him for 3 hours. Now we wouldn't have the patience for that. And of course, everyone has the mobile phones. They're texting, where are you now? How much longer? So Keshab's relatives received him and led him and the devotees upstairs to the veranda south of the drawing room. And Sri Ramakrishna seated himself on a couch. So they're actually outside on the veranda in the afternoon. And after a long wait, Sri Ramakrishna became impatient to see Keshab. Keshab's disciples said that he was resting and would be there presently. Sri Ramakrishna became more and more impatient and said to Keshab's disciples, "Look here, what need is there of his coming to me? Why can't I go in and see him?" Prasanna, humbly, "Sir, he will come in a few minutes." "Go away," says Sri Ramakrishna. "It is you who are making all this fuss. Let me go in." They were very close, so Sri Ramakrishna could feel that he could just go in and see him. And then Prasanna cleverly begins to talk about Keshab in order to divert Sri Ramakrishna's attention. He said, "Keshab is now an altogether different person. Like you, sir, he talks to the Divine Mother. He hears what the Mother says and laughs and cries." When he was told that Keshab talked to the Divine Mother and laughed and cried, the master became ecstatic. Presently, he went into samadhi. So just thinking of how Keshab, this is a very, very clever way of solving the problem of Sri Ramakrishna's impatience. Keshab, I just looked up a few details about his life. He's considered the third great Brahmo leader, but also controversial. And it seems he had a calling to form his own organization because he joined the Brahmo Samaj in 1857. But in 1865, he had a strong disagreement with the leader of the Brahmo Samaj, Devendranath Tagore, and so he split off from that, and he founded the Bharatvarshiya Brahmo Samaj, the Brahmo Samaj of India. And Devendranath actually lived until 1905, so he remained in charge of the first Brahmo Samaj, which they started calling the Adi Brahmo Samaj, means the original Brahmo Samaj. And then in 1878, he meets Sri Ramakrishna in 1875. In 1878, he married his daughter when she was still a young girl, under the age of that they had agreed upon. Was it 16 or something? And so he got his daughter married. Yeah, that's the way it was done in those days. Did I say he married his daughter off? I meant he married his daughter off to the Kuch Bihar Raja. And that created a big schism, and many people left him because he broke the rules of the Brahmo Samaj, so that no child marriage. And then he founded a new organization called the New Dispensation in 1881, called the Navavidhan. And this was profoundly influenced. He was profoundly influenced by Sri Ramakrishna also. And because for quite a while he had been focused especially on Christ, on the teachings of Jesus, and it had become somewhat Christianized, it seems. And then we feel, at least through the influence of Sri Ramakrishna, he became much more accepting of Hindu ideals and became a devotee of Divine Mother, and didn't criticize the idol worship, which had been a strong tradition of the Brahmo Samaj. Now it turns out that Narendranath, he was a member of the Brahmo Samaj, but not Keshav's Brahmo Samaj. He was a member of the original Brahmo Samaj. and Rakhal and a number of other, a few other of Sri Ramakrishna's disciples. So his health had been failing, and then he contracted tuberculosis, and he died on the January 8th, 1884, just over a month after this meeting, with the words "Ma, Ma" on his lips. So now M gives a beautiful description of Sri Ramakrishna. It was winter, and the master was wearing a green flannel coat with a shawl thrown over it. He sat straight, with his eyes fixed, deep in ecstasy. A long time passed in this way. There was no indication of his returning to the normal plane of consciousness. Gradually, it became dark. Lamps were lighted in the drawing room where the master was now to go. While he was slowly coming down to the plane of ordinary consciousness, he was taken there, though with great difficulty. The room was well furnished. At the sight of the furniture, the master muttered to himself, "These things were necessary before, but of what use are they now?" Seeing Rakhal, he said, "Oh, hello, are you here?" Then, seating himself on a couch, he again lost consciousness of the outer world, and looking around as if seeing someone, he said, "Hello, mother, I see that you too have come. How you are showing off in your Benares sari. Don't bother me now, please. Sit down and be quiet." So this is remarkable. Who talks to the Divine Mother and sees her in the room like that, showing off in her fancy sari? It says, "Don't bother me now, Mother." We feel if we get the one glimpse of Divine Mother, that will satisfy us for a lifetime. And Sri Ramakrishna is saying, "Sit down, don't bother me." So, very interesting. The master was in a state of intense divine intoxication. In the well-lighted room, the Brahmo devotees sat around the master. Latu, Rakhal, and M remained near him. You can imagine that, of course, they would have been probably, it says lamps were being lighted in the drawing room. Possibly just the oil lamps that they used in those days on stands. There would have been a number of oil lamps. Or it was a wealthy home. Did they have gas already? Might have had gas lamps. Who knows? That takes some research. So Sri Ramakrishna was speaking as if to himself. He was filled with divine fervor. The body and the soul. The body was born and it will die. But for the soul there is no death. It is like the betel nut. When the nut is ripe, it does not stick to the shell. But when it is green, it is difficult to separate it from the shell. After realizing God, one does not identify oneself anymore with the body. Then one knows that body and soul are two different things. And then Keshab comes in. This, of course, Sri Ramakrishna comes back to this theme again and again. Our true self is not the body, but before realization, like the kernel and the shell of the nut, we can't separate them. Very hard to separate them. So at this moment, Keshab entered the room. He came through the east door. Those who remembered the man who had preached in the town hall or the Brahmo Samaj temple were shocked to see this skeleton covered with skin. He could hardly stand. He walked, holding to the wall for support. With great difficulty, he sat down in front of the couch. In the meantime, Sri Ramakrishna had got down from the couch and was sitting on the floor. Keshab bowed low before the master and remained in that position a long time, touching the master's feet with his forehead. Then he sat up. Sri Ramakrishna was still in a state of ecstasy. He muttered to himself. He talked to the Divine Mother. Raising his voice, Keshab said, "I am here, sir, I am here." He took Sri Ramakrishna's left hand and stroked it gently. But the master was in deep samadhi, completely intoxicated with divine love. A stream of words came from his lips as he talked to himself, and the devotees listened to him spellbound. It's so touching. Keshab, who was such a powerful leader, a great orator and spiritual leader, and Sri Ramakrishna, of course, also had recognized that he was an advanced seeker, not perfected perhaps, but an advanced seeker. He was the one who had swallowed the bait, as it were, and was like a tadpole who could live. He was like a frog. He had dropped his tail. The tadpoles can only live in the water, but the frogs can come out of the water when they drop their tail. So he could both be in the world and be immersed in God. As long as a man associates himself with upadhis, so long he sees the manifold, such as Keshab, Prasanna, Amrita, and so on. But on attaining perfect knowledge, he sees only one consciousness everywhere. The same perfect knowledge, again, makes him realize that the one consciousness has become the universe and its living beings and the 24 cosmic principles. But the manifestations of divine power are different in different beings. It is he undoubtedly who has become everything, but in some cases there is a greater manifestation than in others. So it's interesting that Sri Ramakrishna is talking about this. He's in ecstasy, and Keshab comes in, and of course now just a shadow of his former self, a skeleton who's basically getting ready to die, it looks like. Sri Ramakrishna is talking about this is his fundamental teaching, one consciousness everywhere. This perfect knowledge, he says, Purna Jnana. This Purna Jnana is the perfect knowledge. Purna has that idea of full. It's complete knowledge. It's perfect. It's full knowledge of reality. Ek Chaitanya, one consciousness, and all these things has become all these things. And then, because Keshab was such a powerful teacher, he's also mentioning that there is a greater manifestation of power, of Shakti, in some people than in others. Then he remembers that incident with Vidyasagar, which he quotes often. Pandit Vidyasagar once asked me, can it be true that God has endowed some with greater power and some with less? Probably had the idea that all are equally children of the divine, all are equally manifestations of the divine. Well, how can there be more power in some and less in others? And Sri Ramakrishna was a little hard on him. I replied, if that were not so, how is it that one man may be stronger than 50? If that were not the case, again, how is it that we have all come here to see you? The soul through which God sports is endowed with his special power. The landlord may reside in any part of his estate, but he is generally to be found in a particular drawing room. The devotee is God's drawing room. God loves to sport in the heart of his devotee. It is there that his special power is manifest. It's a beautiful reminder that as we consider ourselves devotees, or we are trying to be devotees, trying to cultivate devotion, and Sri Ramakrishna says, the divine sports in the heart of the devotee. This is the special, the drawing room, we don't have drawing rooms in America. We have a living room. In other words, the living room. There's one room in the house where people hang out. If you have a bigger house, there's one room where most of the people spend most of the time. Maybe it's the family room or the living room, or the drawing room is the formal room where you only go when an important visitor comes. But So, which room does he mean? Probably that room where we spend the time in the heart. What is the sign of such a devotee? When you see a person doing great works, you may know that God's special power is manifested through that person. Yeah, you know this, when Sri Ramakrishna says God's special power is manifested through him. In the Bengali, he doesn't name the deity. He just says, in that place, the manifestation of power is greater. Doesn't name, is it Divine Mother's power, is it Ishvara's power, is it Bhagavan's power? It's just the power, the divine power. The primordial power and the supreme Brahman are identical. This is one of Sri Ramakrishna's fundamental teachings. The Adya Shakti and the Parabrahma are not separate. Abhed is the term he uses, not separate, they are identical. You can never think of the one without the other. They are like the gem and its brilliance. One cannot think of the brilliance without the gem, or of the gem without its brilliance. Again, it is like the snake and its wriggling motion. One cannot think of the wriggling motion without the snake, or of the snake without its wriggling motion. Can you try it? I sometimes think, if I think of a snake sometimes lies coiled, but the snakes that you see in India, I would imagine in the villages, they'd always be wriggling away. So you would be snakes. Growing up in the city, living in the city, we don't think about snakes. But in village India, you have to think about snakes all the time. And people still today die from snake bites. So a snake is a common thing, and it's a feared, generally feared. And so one's eyes are always attuned to seeing any snake. That's why that example of the snake and the rope is also so such a powerful example, because it happens in the villages in India when you see a stick or a rope on the ground and you think, oh my God, it's a snake. And then you realize, oh no, it's not a snake. It's
the buildings don't, in the villages, the walls don't even go all the way down to the ground, or there's holes right at the ground so that snakes can just
snakes can come in the village, in some of the villages.
Snakes come in your own house.
I see. The Bengali villages, they have the mud houses. That's not the case. But I guess the shanties where they just have the flimsy.
They have like the reeds and they're covered with mud a lot. And they're just so easy.
So easy to get in. Wow. So it is the primordial power that has become the universe and its living beings and the 24 cosmic principles. It is a case of involution and evolution. Okay, this is one of those teachings that he uses a few times. This idea that actually we don't really know exactly what Sri Ramakrishna means here. He says anulom and vilom, and that actually it can be translated as with the grains along with the hair and against the hair. Do you have, Maharaj, you have any comment about this anulom and vilom?
I think the translation there, the expansion and the contraction, evolution and involution.
Right.
That is fairly correct.
But it's an interpretation, you can say. The translation is an interpretation, because anulom and vilom, it means forward and back, or expansion, contraction, involution, evolution. So Swami Vivekananda would say that, of course, that yes, we may have evolved from the protozoan, but that means the human being, the perfect man, was involved in the protozoa. and that because otherwise how it couldn't come out of nothing. So that perfection is involved and then it evolves. So it does seem like a good translation, involution and evolution. Why do I feel so restless for Rakhal, Narendra, and the other youngsters? Hazra once asked me, when will you think of God if you are always anxious about these boys? And Keshab and the others smile, knowing that Sri Ramakrishna is always thinking about God. That worried me greatly. I prayed to the Divine Mother, Mother, see what a fix I am in. Hazra scolds me because I worry about these young men. Afterwards, I asked Bholanath about it. It must be one of the temple officers. He said to me that such a state of mind is described in the Mahabharata. How else will a person established in samadhi occupy his mind in the phenomenal world after coming down from samadhi? That is why he seeks the company of devotees endowed with sattva. I gave a sigh of relief when Bholanath told me of the Mahabharata. Sri Ramakrishna has this perfect simplicity that even someone like Hazra would tell him, and he'll start to worry. And what does he do? He runs immediately to Divine Mother. And then, of course, Bholanath helped him out also with this idea. Other times he would say, I love them because I see the divine in them. I see God in them. Hazra is not to blame. During the period of struggle, one should follow the method of discrimination, of vichara, discernment, not this, and direct the whole mind to God. But the state of perfection is quite different. After reaching God, one reaffirms what one formerly denied. To extract butter, you must separate it from the buttermilk. Then you discover that butter and buttermilk are intrinsically related to one another. They belong to the same stuff. The butter is not essentially different from the buttermilk, nor the buttermilk essentially different from the butter. After realizing God, one knows definitely that it is He who has become everything. In some objects, He is manifested more clearly, and in others, less clearly. It's interesting to me how he's just flowing, the teachings are just flowing out of him. So Keshab he's come to see Keshab. He's still not fully aware of Keshab. The teachings are just flowing out without ceasing. The mother is providing him with teachings.
Interestingly, Sri Ramakrishna never asked him. So far, he has not asked him, "How are you?"
Right, right. And afterwards, M also notes that they didn't have any comment. How are you doing? How is it? Just talk of God. The two great devotees. He doesn't need to ask. He knows everything. That's true. He can see that how Keshab is, and his main concern is for Keshab's spiritual welfare. Obviously, the body is dying.
He has dropped enough indications that he will not be long.
Right. Yes. Yes. When a flood comes from the ocean, all the land is deep underwater. Before the flood, the boat could have reached the ocean only by following the winding course of the river. But after the flood, one can row straight to the ocean. One need not take a roundabout course. After the harvest has been reaped, one need not take the roundabout course along the bulk of the field. One can cross the field at any point. If you've seen the rice fields in Bengal, then you can understand this perfectly. They're actually quite small. Maybe like in the temple here, that would be one, or even smaller than that. And they have walls built around them of mud. Walls means bulk, like this, maybe this high or something. And you can walk on top of the bulk. And of course, once the water is gone and the harvest has been done, you can walk right across it. But otherwise, you just have to trace your path along this. It's like a quilt of all these different little patches of rice fields. It's beautiful. After the realization of God, He is seen in all beings, but his greater manifestation is in human beings. Again, among human beings, God manifests himself more clearly in those devotees who are sattvic, in those who have no desire whatever to enjoy lust and gold. Where can a person of samadhi rest his mind after coming down from the plane of samadhi? That is why he feels the need of seeking the company of pure-hearted devotees, endowed with sattva and free from attachment to lust and gold. How else could such a person occupy himself in the relative plane of consciousness? So he's explaining his love for the young men. He who is Brahman is the Adya Shakti, the primal energy. When inactive, he is called Brahman, the Purusha. He is called Shakti or Prakriti when engaged in creation, preservation, and destruction. These are the two aspects of reality, Purusha and Prakriti. He who is the Purusha is also Prakriti. Both are the embodiment of bliss. The way he puts it in Bengali, Anandamoy or Anandamayi. Nice. It means that the name, the Anandamoy is the masculine form, and Anandamayi is the feminine form. So he says, filled with bliss, full of bliss. The embodiments of bliss, you can say, of Ananda. Jini Purush Tini Prakriti. That he or that which is Purush is also Prakriti. So that's how they're almost as if there is some other reality which is the supreme reality which is beyond our capacity to even put a word to, let alone conceive of, manifest as Purusha and as Prakriti, and as Anandamoy and Anandamayi. If you are aware of the male principle, you cannot ignore the female principle. He who is aware of the father must also think of the mother. And at this point, M notes that Keshab laughs hearing this. Keshab lost his father he was 10 years old when his father died. And then Devendranath Tagore became a kind of father figure to him. And then, of course, later he broke from him. But perhaps he's laughing more because now his whole heart and mind are fixed on Divine Mother as he's preparing to leave the body. He who knows darkness also knows light. He who knows night also knows day. He who knows happiness also knows misery. You understand this, don't you? Keshab, yes, sir, I do. So now Sri Ramakrishna has come, is aware of Keshab sitting before him and is speaking with him, and he addresses him directly. These are the pairs of opposites, the dvandvas that we learn about in our Vedantic study. Heat and cold, happiness and misery, light and dark, night and day, these pairs of opposites. And then Sri Ramakrishna talks again about his mother. My mother. Who is my mother? Ah, she is the mother of the universe. It is she who creates and preserves the world, who always protects her children, and who grants whatever they desire, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. A true son cannot live away from his mother. The mother knows everything. The child only eats, drinks, and makes merry. He doesn't worry himself about the things of the world. Keshab, yes, sir, it is quite true. Gives a lot of reassurance that the mother grants whatever her children desire. If they desire dharma, artha, and kama, she grants that. If they desire moksha, she also grants that, if they desire liberation. So, while talking, M describes Sri Ramakrishna regained the normal consciousness of the world. With a smile on his face, he conversed with Keshab. The room full of men watched them eagerly and listened to their words. Everybody was amazed to find that neither Keshab nor the master inquired about each other's health. They talked only of God. Room full of men. In those days, I mean, we get that when we read the gospel. In those days, the segregation of men and women was quite strong. So in public settings, men and women would be separate. Even today, in our temples, for instance, the women sit on the one side and the men sit on the other, and there's a little aisle in between. So even today, at least in our temples, we observe this. So it's the first time I entered a temple, I was quite surprised and not offended in any way, but it was in America. One traveling guru was visiting the town where I was living. This was before I joined the monastery. And so with a friend, I went to see the female friend. And we came to the door, and they said, okay, you go there, and you go there. I was like, oh, we're okay. We went, we were separated to the different sides. So that was the tradition. Sri Ramakrishna asks Keshab, why do the members of the Brahmo Samaj dwell so much on God's glories? Is there any great need of repeating such things as, O God, thou hast created the moon, the sun, and the stars? Most people are filled with admiration for the garden only. How few care to see its owner. Who is greater, the garden or its owner? I imagine that the Brahmos used to pray like that. Oh Lord, you created the sun and the moon and the stars. How beautiful this creation is. Somehow praising God as if, Sri Ramakrishna goes on to describe this. After a few drinks at a tavern, do I care to know how many gallons of wine are stored there? One bottle is enough for me. When I met that, I don't think he never drank, actually. He never experienced what the intoxication of wine. He would touch it to his forehead if it was offered to Divine Mother. But he could see the effects. He could see people drinking and could see their ecstasy, their kind of ecstasy. And he himself experienced that spiritual ecstasy when people would sometimes think he was actually drunk because he couldn't walk straight. He was so intoxicated with love. When I met Narendra, I never asked him, who is your father? How many houses does he own? Shall I tell you the truth? This is amusing. Man loves his own riches, and so he thinks that God loves his too. We think we actually project onto God what we are and what we like. If we like money, we think God also likes his money. He thinks that God will be pleased if we glorify his riches. Once Shambhu said to me, please bless me that I may die leaving my riches at the lotus feet of God. I answered, these are riches only to you. What riches can you offer God? To him, these are mere dust and straw. And then this beautiful incident of the thief who stole the jewels at the Krishna temple at Dakshineshwar. Once a thief broke into the temple of Vishnu. It means Radha Krishna is there. And the Hindu temples, they often have jewelry, special jewelry just for the deity, and they decorate the deity with the jewelry. And you can see that Divine Mother Kali at Dakshineshwar, they have a lot of gold jewelry actually that they keep. So they have to be a little careful to protect the jewelry. So anyhow, thieves also know this. And so once a thief broke into this Krishna temple and stole some of the jewelry. And this was a big, of course, a big commotion broke out when it was discovered. Robbed the image of its jewels. Mathur Babu and I went to the temple to see what was the matter. Mathur Babu, of course, was the son-in-law of Rani Rashmani, the founder of the temple, and was the manager of the temple. Addressing the image, Mathur said bitterly, "What a shame, Lord. You are so worthless. The thief took all the ornaments from your body, and you couldn't do a thing about it." Thereupon I said to Mathur, "Shame on you. How improper your words are. To God, the jewels you talk so much about are only lumps of clay. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is his consort. Do you mean to say that he should spend sleepless nights because a thief has taken your few rupees? You mustn't say such things." Quite amusing. Can one ever bring God under control through wealth? He can be tamed only through love. What does he want? Certainly not wealth. He wants from his devotees love, devotion, feeling, discernment, and renunciation. That's a beautiful teaching. Though, of course, if we say, I'm thinking of a devotee who got a new job, and the first paycheck that she got from the job, she dedicated to Vedanta Society, making it an offering to Sri Ramakrishna, as it were. So in that sense, this idea that, yes, we offer everything to God. If we have wealth, if we have money, we also consider that as dedicated to the divine. And so we have to spend it carefully. We spend it in the service of God. And, of course, service of our families and our housing and all that, but all in the context, if we're spiritual practitioners, all in the context of our spiritual life. However, actually, what does God really want from us? He wants love, devotion, spiritual practice. One looks on God exactly according to one's own inner feeling. He often used to quote the song where he says, "Jamun bhab temni labh," which means as is one's bhava, as is one's attitude, temni labh, in the same way is one's attainment. So as how we conceive of the divine, that manifests in our spiritual life and also in our spiritual realization. If I think of God as mother, I will experience God as mother. If I think of God as a punishing tyrant, I will experience that. So one's attitude is very important. Take, for instance, a devotee with an excess of tamas. He thinks that the Divine Mother eats goat, so he slaughters one for her, and then, of course, takes the prasad. Again, the devotee endowed with rajas cooks rice and various other dishes for the mother. But the sattvic devotee doesn't make any outer show of his worship. People don't even know he is worshiping. If he has no flowers, he worships with mere Ganges water and the leaves of the bel tree. His food offering to the deity consists of sweetened puffed rice or a few candies. Occasionally, he cooks a little rice pudding for the deity. The candies means batasa. He says the batasa, it's basically just the crystal. We got some the other day. At Belur Mutt, huge mounds of batasa are offered to Sri Ramakrishna. They're little sugar candy, basically, little sugar candies, and about that size, and crunchy and not solid. They're like sort of crystallized, so that you can put it in your mouth and crunch it. And they offer these huge trays piled with batasa in front of Sri Ramakrishna's murti, the image at Belur Mutt. And afterwards, those are distributed to the devotees. And they're also put into little paper packets and distributed so people can take a packet with them. And so sometimes when devotees come here, they'll bring a packet of this batasa. So it's a very cheap little candy. It's not even a fancy sweet like sandesh or something. It's just little sugar candy. And so the sattvic devotee just offers that. Because for the sattvic devotee, the whole point is to cultivate that devotion, to cultivate that purity, to dedicate his or her whole life to the divine. So the externals are not so important as this cultivating this intense mood. So a little offering may help that, but if you're spending hours cooking fancy rice curries, then where's the time for your meditation? In fact, I've seen that. I'm thinking of a particular place where the devotee felt that she needed to do everyday puja, and she would but she didn't have much time. She was working, so she had maybe an hour in the morning or 45 minutes. So most of that time was taken up with preparing some fruits and a little glass of water, and Sri Ramakrishna should have his glass, and Holy Mother should have her glass, and all these things. And so by the time all that is done, there's no time. There's 10 minutes, 15 minutes left for japa. If you only have 45 minutes, offer some incense and sit and do japa. If you have 2 hours, okay, go do all those things. Of course, it's also true that for some people, their minds are very restless. And while doing japa, the mind will run about everywhere. If they're doing something like making a little sandal paste and preparing a little plate of offerings, their minds are more focused, perhaps, on the divine than if they're just sitting with their eyes closed, doing japa, and actually mind is wandering about everywhere. So there's that side also. There is another class of devotees, those who are beyond the 3 gunas. They have the nature of a child. Their worship consists in chanting God's name, just His name. That's a beautiful. Just His name is enough for the advanced, the one who has gone beyond the gunas, like Sri Ramakrishna. Now Sri Ramakrishna actually addresses the fact that Keshab is ill. To Keshab with a smile. Why is it that you are ill? There is a reason for it. Many spiritual feelings have passed through your body. Therefore, it has fallen ill. At the time an emotion is aroused, one understands very little about it. The blow that it delivers to the body is felt only after a long while. I have seen big steamers going by on the Ganges, at the time hardly noticing their passing. But oh my, what a terrific noise is heard after a while when the waves splash against the banks. Perhaps a piece of the bank breaks loose and falls into the water. We can imagine the Gangas there and the steamers go by, and you hardly notice it. Off in the distance, you hear the noise a little bit. But then the waves, as you know, the waves take a while to reach the bank. And a big steamer has a big wake. So when the wake hits the bank, there's a lot of splashing. One sees this even now at Belur Math. One can notice this. He says, this feelings means this bhava. He uses the term bhava. Many spiritual feelings. Anek bhav chole geche. Many bhavas have passed through your frame. And apparently, he goes on to describe how that happens. He gives another example of an elephant. An elephant enters a hut, creating havoc within, and ultimately shakes it down. The elephant of divine emotion enters the hut of this body and shatters it to pieces. Do you know what actually happens? When a house is on fire, at first a few things inside burn. Then comes the great commotion. Just so, the fire of knowledge at first destroys such enemies of spiritual life as passion, anger, and so forth. Then comes the turn of ego. And lastly, a violent commotion is seen in the physical frame. Interesting. Does that mean that we shouldn't, spiritual life is a little dangerous. Maybe if we get this bhava, our body will be broken apart. What about that? Huh? So that's why it was said that Sri Ramakrishna's body was a special body, very strong, very strong nerves, and because he underwent so much intense spiritual discipline and had so many ecstasies, so many experiences of samadhi and all of that. And yet, he maintained his health until the very end, but he was able to withstand that. After all of that, his body was very sensitive, so he couldn't bear worldly vibrations, of course, but also physically it was very, very sensitive. Apparently once he cut his finger on a luchi, a fried bread which had been served at night, and his finger was cut a little bit on that luchi. So very, very sensitive. You may think that everything is going to be over, but God will not release you as long as the slightest trace of your illness is left. You simply cannot leave the hospital if your name is registered there. As long as the illness is not perfectly cured, the doctor won't give you a permit to go. Why did you register your name in the hospital at all? And everybody laughs. This doesn't apply nowadays. Now, as soon as you're out of extreme danger, they send you home. So now this no longer applies. But I guess in those days, if you've registered in the hospital, you have to stay until you're fully cured. True, even now the doctor has to sign off that you're well enough to go. And if you insist on going before that, you have to sign a paper saying, I'm leaving against medical advice, right? What do they say? AMA, you're leaving AMA against medical advice. He's suggesting, it seems that that Keshab has, the illness has some purpose for his spiritual evolution, I think. Keshab laughed again and again at the master's allusion to the hospital. The description in Bengali goes a little further, and it says that he could not restrain his laughter, and then he sort of got it under control, and then again he'd start laughing. So this went on for some time. He's laughing a lot. Then Sri Ramakrishna spoke of his own illness to Keshab. Hridaya used to say, never before have I seen such ecstasy for God, and never before have I seen such illness. I was then seriously ill with stubborn diarrhea. It was as if millions of ants were gnawing at my brain. But all the same, spiritual talk went on day and night. Dr. Rama of Natagore was called in to see me. He found me discussing spiritual truth. What a madman, he said. Nothing is left of him but a few bones, and still he is reasoning like that. So that was Sri Ramakrishna, completely indifferent to his body. But very few of us, it's interesting, illness is a good time to test how is our spiritual practice, how are we doing when we're lying sick, do we think of God? Can we do japa? Or do we lapse into unconsciousness? When we had this COVID epidemic, I think many of us probably caught it. I think I had it 2 or 3 times. And lying with high fever, lying in bed, what's the state of the mind? For Sri Ramakrishna, he would have been talking about God with people. All the same. And then Sri Ramakrishna says, all depends on God's will, on tar icha, on his will, on her will. And then he quotes the song, of course, the famous song that Shokoli tomari icha. But he doesn't sing it, he just repeats it. O Mother, all is done after thine own sweet will. Thou art in truth self-willed, Redeemer of humankind. Thou workest thine own work, men only call it theirs. Shokoli tomar icha, all is your icha, all is your will. Ichamai, you are ichamai, you are the very embodiment of will. You are, that's why the self-willed. Tara tumi, Tara, you are the Savior, the Redeemer of humankind. Tomar karma, your work, Tumi karo ma, mother, you do the work. Loke bole koriyami. The people say, I'm doing. Kori ami. Ami kori, I do. So people say, that's the way men only call it theirs. Means people say, I'm doing. Actually, mother, you are doing all work. But people say that I am doing. In order to take full of advantage of the dew, the gardener removes the soil from the basra rose down to the very root. Anyone know what a basra rose is? I forgot to look it up. It must be some special kind of rose. Basra, isn't that in Iraq or someplace? Isn't that so maybe it's a special variety of rose that was developed in Basra. Anyhow, the plant thrives better on account of the moisture. Perhaps that is why you too are being shaken to the very root. Keshab and Sri Ramakrishna both laugh. It may be that you will do tremendous things when you come back. Come back, it's not clear if he means come back from this illness or if he means come back a second time. He just says, when you return, firti buji ekta boro kanda hobe. Great something will happen. Now we'll just wrap it up here, but I just want to touch on this touching. Whenever I hear that you are ill, I become extremely restless. After hearing of your last illness, I used to weep to the Divine Mother in the small hours of the morning. I prayed to her, "O Mother, if anything happens to Keshab, with whom then shall I talk in Calcutta?" Coming to Calcutta, I offered fruits and sweets to the Divine Mother with a prayer for your well-being. Actually, this is a kind of liberal translation, is a dabchini, which means green coconuts and sugar. Actually, he offered green coconuts and sugar to Ma Siddheshwari. That's one temple of Mother Kali called Siddheshwari Temple in Tanzania, right? In the neighborhood of Calcutta. Sri Ramakrishna had been many times to that temple. In the different Kalis in the temples in Bengal, they are given different names. So the Ma Kali at Dakshineshwar is Ma Bhavatarini, Savior of the world. And Ma Kali at this temple in Tanzania is Ma Siddheshwari. So they're all Kali, but they have different names. And the devotees were deeply touched to hear of Sri Ramakrishna's love for Keshab and his longing for the Brahmo leader. Then he says, "But this time, to tell the truth, I didn't feel anxious to that extent. Only for 2 or 3 days did I feel a little worried." Interesting, don't know why. Maybe he realized that this time the end has come. It doesn't indicate why this time is. So it looks like that's probably a great place to stop because we've been going for about an hour, and of course, and that's the main end of their conversation. After that, Keshav's mother comes into the room and asks Sri Ramakrishna to bless Keshab that he may get well, and Sri Ramakrishna says, please pray to Divine Mother, and then tells Keshab, don't spend much time with your family in the inner apartments. Your mind will go down. Just keep your mind in God. So that's finally Keshab starts coughing, and he can't stop coughing, and he leaves the room. And then some refreshments are brought, and finally he praises Keshab very much before his disciples and made them happy. But gave them some solace, I should say. Actually, I'm skipping ahead. He tells the story of the 2 instances when God laughs. God laughs again God laughs when two people divide their land, two brothers, they have an argument, and they put a string across the property, and they say, that side is yours, and this side is mine. And God laughs. He thinks, this whole universe is mine, and they're saying, that's his, and this is mine. And God laughs again when the physician says to the mother, weeping bitterly because of her child's desperate illness, don't be afraid, mother, I shall cure your child. The physician does not know that no one can save the child if God wills that he should die. And all fall silent. And then Keshab has his coughing fit. So it's a kind of bittersweet ending to their last meeting. Sri Ramakrishna's last words are, no one can save the child if God wills that he should die. And then Keshab has the coughing fit and has to leave. And that was their last meeting. He became exhausted and could stay no longer. He bowed low before the master and left the room, holding to the wall as before. Now this is this conversation is because it's described so well, we can really think of it and envision it. And what a touching and moving last meeting of the two great friends, Sri Ramakrishna and Keshab Chandra Sen. And when Keshab left the body, Sri Ramakrishna didn't leave his bed for 3 days. He became paralyzed, as it were. So he grieved also. So though he spoke like this, but he had this tremendous heart. He also grieved for Keshab's death. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidam Tang Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namami. This verse was composed by Swami Abhedananda, and it means Niranjanam, stainless, eternal, of infinite forms. Out of compassion for the devotees, you have taken a human form, a veritable manifestation of the divine in human form. The Supreme Lord, to you, Ramakrishna, to that Ramakrishna, we bow down our heads. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishnaarpanam Astu. Sorry, usually I remember to ask if there's any questions or comments, and I wanted to get through the conversation, and so I used up all the time. I apologize for that. Thank you for joining me for a study of this inspiring incident recounted in the Gospel.